Hi guys, it's Marcelo Nostroza here, back again for another live stream. Welcome to another edition of Balloonhead Live. On today's broadcast, I will be discussing Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, Season One, Episode Three, entitled "Ghosts of Illyria." All right, guys. So in this episode, as I fix my lower third here, I didn't do that right. Crap. Is this the lower third? No, wait a minute. No, this is the lower third. Ha! There we go. All right. So as I fixed my lower third there, in this episode, the Enterprise get entrusted with trying to mine the knowledge of a colony that um that uh that they try they get entrusted to Uh, tr- in this episode, sorry, in this episode, the Enterprise get entrusted with trying to find out what happened to a colony of people that, for some reason, unbeknownst to us, uh, favor genetic enhancement. And when they go down to the planet seems to be going through an ion storm. So what ends up happening is the away team, most of the away team, has to go back to the Enterprise, and Spock and Pike have to stay behind because at the time of the ion storm hitting, they are doing some research in a vault that apparently has been there for 1,000 years. And in this specific instinct, in this specific instance, is going to be destroyed. So that's the basic setup of the episode. And I will say that this episode was a real joy and a real pleasure to watch because it really had um 90s style Trek vibes to me. And I love that this episode focused primarily around uh, um, Rebecca Romaine's character, Una number one. And I love the fact that while Pike and Spock were on the planet, Una was in charge of the Enterprise. And lo and behold, the one time that you get in charge of the finest ship in the fleet, you have to deal with a pandemic sort of situation. So it turns out that something on the planet affected our fellow away team, and the away team is addicted to light. Right? They're addicted to light so much so that it makes them like drunk on power, and they're obsessed with it. And I thought that this episode really had um, the Naked Time vibes to it, in a similar aspect as to how the light affects them. Like for example, the first away team member that we come across being affected by the light, Erica comes across in one of the corridors, and this guy is taking his clothes off in the middle of the goddamn corridors, in the middle of the goddamn corridor, and he proceeds to jam his head into a panel, cracking it. And Erica, forces him back and takes him to sick bay. So I really like this episode because of those vibes, but also I like this episode because this episode gives us some much needed backstory on Una. Now, you guys know that I'm a huge fan of Majel Barrett from back in the day when she was in the cage, but unfortunately, her portrayal of Una really didn't get the respect it deserves because she didn't get a chance to, you know, she didn't get a chance to really explore that character in the way that Rebecca Romaine will get a chance to explore that character. So I really like the fact that while all this is going on, while everybody is losing their minds on the Enterprise, uh, Una is staying. as calm and cool as can be, even after she gets infected. And when she gets infected, we discover that she is an Elorian. So she is a member of the people that the Enterprise are somewhat trying to figure out what happened to them on the planet below. So the her being a member of that species precludes her from being really affected by what is happening to the Enterprise crew during the episode. So, I mean, yeah, I really like this episode because it really gave some interesting dimension to Una, and it really gave her a backstory that I could identify with. And just stick with me here. The main reason why I say this is a backstory that I could identify with is growing up as a disabled person. I really hid a lot of stuff. I really hid a lot of aspects of my personality from those who I really cared about and those who I really loved, just because of the things that I couldn't, just because of the things that I, I couldn't do. I felt embarrassed because I couldn't do standard things that everybody else could do. So I would hide the person that I really am from the people that I would from the people that I cared about most. And I really identify with Una's plight in this episode, because she felt if she would have come out to her crew members that they would have looked at her differently. And at one point in the episode, towards the end of the episode, actually, she actually goes to Chris, to Chris, and she actually resigns her commission because it is the Federation at this point considers it illegal to be an augment, right? So Una would have had to lied. She would have had to lied on her Federation application, because if she would have told the Federation who she really was, they obviously wouldn't have accepted her because of her augmentation. So I really connected with that aspect of um, the storyline in this episode. Also, if you guys have been watching these reviews since episode one, you guys would know that I had a serious issue with the way that the Strange New Worlds writing team was delving out backstory so far in the series, right? As a writer, I've been told on multiple occasions, when you want to tell backstory to your audience, you work the backstory in organically. You don't just put two characters, or you don't just put two characters in a room and tell them, and say, okay, you're going to tell this other character much needed backstory. We're not going to weave it in to the bigger plot of the story. We are just going to spoon feed it to the audience like they're fucking morons. So I really appreciated that Una's backstory was given to us organically throughout the course of this episode, and her backstory was connected to the larger plot in this episode. I really, really appreciated that more than you guys would ever know. The ultimate cause of this problem that the away team was experiencing was because apparently the the transporters, the Enterprise transporters, they weren't working correctly, and the main reason that they weren't working correctly was because the medical transporter was siphoning power for something. Yeah, and that whole thing to me really, really pissed me off, because we find out that Dr. Mbanga is keeping his what 6-year-old daughter, 5-year-old daughter in the pattern buffer in the medical transporter, right? And that is siphoning power from the main transporter on the ship. And that's why the main transporter couldn't extract this thing that ends up making our Enterprise crew addicted to light. Now, I understand that those of you who may be watching this right now may be saying the main reason why you don't identify with Dr. Mbenga's plight is because you're not a father. Because if you were a father, you would understand that you would do anything that you possibly could to stay with your kids that much longer. And when they're sick, you would do anything that you possibly could to make them better. Okay, I have no problem with that, and I understand that. But as the chief medical officer aboard the Enterprise, you are a goddamn professional. And you had to have known that what is happening here could have possibly been caused by your negligence of keeping your daughter in the goddamn parent buffer, for God's sakes. And ultimately, I really was disappointed with Una's decision to not make Dr. Mbanga let go of his daughter and purge her from the medical pattern buffer. Like, like that to me would have been more impactful than what number one ultimately did, um, which is she allowed Dr. Mbanga to get power from another system on the ship. Basically, I believe. I'm not necessarily sure. I'm sorry that my review is all over the place, guys, but I'm kind of running on like a couple hours of sleep. So yeah, my review is going to be not as informative as it normally was, or at least the past couple weeks have been. I really the other thing that I really liked is I really liked the progression of the relationship between Una and Laan in this episode. So we find out that the reason why Una is basically immune to what is happening to our away team is because of a chemical that she has in her body. But Dr. Mbanga and Nurse Chapel cannot extract that chemical for some reason, right? And when Laan goes a little nuts and tries to overload the warp core because she needs that massive light, right? She just craves it like everybody else on the ship. Una and her have an amazing drag out fight where Una basically smacks the shit out of Alon, and she basically goes supernova and basically takes some of Laan's DNA in her own body, and that allows Nurse Chapel to synthesize an antidote for what ails the crew in this episode. So that I accepted, and look. What I'm trying to say is a lot of things in this episode didn't match up precisely in the way that I wanted them to, but that was like besides the point because I still enjoyed the episode, and like I said, I love the way that Una's backstory was organically woven in to the greater plot of what was happening in this episode. Anyway, we do find out what happened to the colonists, what happened to the people on the planet in this episode. So the people on the planet, the people who lived on this planet, wanted to join the Federation so bad that they tried to take away their uh they tried to suck out their genetic makeup and become like any other ordinary person, right? But in their attempt to do that, they basically became mad and they turned into light beings, right? So throughout the whole episode, there's a lightning storm happening on the planet, and it turns out that the lightning storm or the lightning storm has these lightning beings in it, and the lightning beings in the storm happen to be the the native people from the planet, right? So I really liked that aspect of this episode, that this civilization wanted to join the Federation so bad that they ended up killing themselves in an effort to cure themselves to join the Federation. So I really, really love the aspect of this episode. And I thought that it was a really, really fun watch. So with everything being said, with all that stuff being said and out of the way, of all the episodes of Strange New Worlds that have been released so far in season one, which is 3 episodes so far, I would give this episode out of 10, I would give this episode an 8. I really, really enjoyed it, despite minor gripes here and there, writer's logic that that sort of uh, you know uh, that sort of shouted bells in my head. As a writer, this stuff drives you crazy, but as a fan, I just loved Rebecca Romaine's performance, her interactions with La'an, her being in charge of the ship. I just loved all of that. But as a writer, I do acknowledge that this episode was not perfect, and this episode needed maybe one, maybe a couple more passes before I would have given it the okay to go shoot. But with all that being said, if you guys have seen this episode, in the comments below, tell me what you liked about it. Tell me what you didn't like about it. But also, real quick, if you guys want to chat to me online about Star Trek Strange New Worlds, or about anything science fiction, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at CreekFanatic88, as I change the board here. But until next time, thank you so much for watching. And as always, I'll see you when I see you.
So much happened here, and so much is about to.